All right, so today we're going to be working on converging a monitor. Some friends of mine had asked me to do this, so I figured I'd make it available to everyone. The first things I want to point out is that I'm going to be right now just focusing on a monitor with no rings on the back at the moment. I'm going to show you just how important the yoke actually is in convergence. A lot of people are under the misconception that the convergence rings do all the convergence. They actually only do a small part of it. The majority of it is actually done with the yoke. So I'm going to turn this on here, but I just wanted to show you that there was nothing there. Turn this on here, turn the pattern generator on, and we'll get our kind of basic image from the just using the yoke. So a few things people are worried about is, getting shocked, which is understandable. I'm going to be working on messing with the yoke here. And a lot of people are worried about touching things in the back of CRT because they're afraid that they might get shocked. There's a few places you can get shocked. The one that everybody talks about, of course, is the anode. This is where the highest voltage is running, but also it's at very low current. Everybody's afraid of dying. All the CRT experts, everybody you talk to, no one has any awareness of anyone ever dying. So I think you can have a little bit of calm on this. Everybody's really freaked out.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm.
Just want to make sure that the anode cap is really securely fastened. The suction cup around it is, tight. The other place you can get shocked is actually touching the back of the tube, but you shouldn't if it is properly grounded. And I'm going to talk about what that means. You'll notice when I got another CRT out here, there's this material, this paint actually, on the back of a CRT tube. It's called Aquadag, and it is a conductive paint. So it's used to discharge the static electric buildup that happens in the back of a CRT. The paint is just there to be conductive. The actual way to discharge it is you've got this DAG strap here, that's what it's called. Aquadag spelled A-Q-U-A-D-A-G if you're curious. The strap here then takes it as a conductant, makes contact with the Aquadag, and then you need to make sure this is grounded. Depends on the CRT you have. This is the K7, the chassis you have. This is a K7000. You'll see it over here. There's the Aquadag. It ultimately has a little wire right there, solder to it. That black wire, if you follow it, comes all the way to the back of this neck board. Actually, here it is coming right through here to the back of the neck board, which then turn is then connected to the metal frame and ultimately grounds it. So that's one place. The other place you can get shocked is on if you have exposed metal, I'll just take it off here. On the yoke, the places where the electricity makes contact on here, if you have those exposed, if you touch both of them together, then you get a little bit of shock. Again, none of this stuff is going to really hurt you bad. It's just going to make you jump. I just put some crude tape over there just to show you how easy it is to avoid that problem. Probably a proper way would be some shrink tubing or something like that. The last place you can get that has some decent voltage is in the back of the neck board. Usually these have some kind of cardboard or something over to protect it. If your flyback has cracks in it, then you could get shocks from here. So you might want to just check to make sure there's no cracks in the actual flyback casing. Other than that, you should be able to touch it just fine. All right, on to what we're really here to do. So I'm going to be demonstrating how a yoke, when you're moving the yoke, I'm going to be using another yoke. Actually, I have a K6100 here yoke that I'll be showing kind of how I'm moving things and all that. So I'm going to set up the camera here so you can see. Okay, hopefully that's good. So the first thing with a yoke is, how you tilt it, how you move it affects the actual physical geometry. So if you're having an issue with your picture being tilted, it's literally just, and all I'm doing right now is just going like this. with the yolk. It's just a matter of this. Now you notice how these colors are starting to change here. And this is a really important thing. This is, a lot of people will be under the impression that, oh, if I've got this issue, I just need to degauss it. And sometimes that's the case, and you can get a degaussing wand and do it. But if your yolk has moved from its factory position in any way, this often is an issue of the position of the yolk and its distance relative to the tube. So these colors are changing now. I'm gonna change these colors. All I'm doing is pulling the yolk in and out relative to the distance of the tube. So you'll notice how these colors are now changing, and I'm getting more of a pure blue. All I did was shove the yolk closer to the tube. If I start to pull it too far away, and I'm shaking because it's a little tight right now, notice how then these colors get all off. So if you're wanting to get a monitor properly converged, the first thing you want to do is focus on your purity, and that's what this means, how uniform the color is across the screen. In other words, getting rid of this degauss problem. So I'm going to put my pattern generator on red. I have kind of a little bit of a connection issue on my pattern generator. It has broken on me, so I'm gonna have to fix that. All right, I got my red fixed. Now, just in case anybody's thinking maybe between clips I might have pulled the rings off again just to demonstrate. There's no rings on this. There's just playing with the yolk right now. Okay, so I'm coming back here, sitting on. Sorry, I'm not a big video professional person, so you have to deal with me with this. All right, so we're getting our red back here. Got our red back, and we're gonna focus on purity on red, which is so messed up. I'm gonna get a little better here so we can see. Okay, so you can see all I did was pull the yolk closer to the tube. It was too far away. And here I've got my red. So this is the first thing we want to work on is purity when we're trying to dial in a monitor. So again, this is how far we are from the back of the tube. So you can see this here, I got this green still in the lower right hand corner. Now there's pulling the yolk closer to the tube, but there's also tilt. So how much I am tilting this up or down. Now this is there's a little screw that holds the yolk in place. If it's too tight, you want to loosen that. All I do is just loosen a little screw in the back of the yolk. And this one, it's a big hand dial, and a lot of them it's just a screw. It's just tightening the ring that's around this plastic. And you're gonna be careful with this plastic because it can be a little delicate. So I just loosen that, so it'll make it a little easier for me to pull things in and out. So I have in here, I forgot that I put this in there, I have a wedge. This is a wedge. So I'd forgotten that I put one in there already. Now notice how all the colors changed. All that happened was because I pulled that wedge, the yolk tilted, it fell down. And so now I'm pulling it in, and now I can tilt up and down a lot easier because I can remove that wedge. And all I'm doing right now, you'll notice how these colors are changing. Now I pulled it back, I'm putting it forward again here. But if I've got issues in corners, sometimes it's just a matter of pulling the yolk up and down, but really it's just about getting the right distance. And so that looks pretty good. You can see it's pretty uniformly red. Just a little bit here in the bottom. It's a very small range of movement that gets to the right purity. So if you're having purity issues, you might think, oh, it's not the yolk. It doesn't take that much for you to pull it in or out to lose your purity. You can see that's fairly uniformly red, right? You just want to make sure you don't go too far. That's going all the way to the back of the tube. And you can see that also is a problem. So it's not just shoving it all the way. You want to go all the way to the tube, front of the tube, back of the tube, and slightly pull away till you get a nice pure color of red. So that looks pretty good to me. So what I'm going to do now is and notice how the yolk dropped. All it did was go like that, and that's where I get that blue and that green, and that's okay. I don't need to worry about that. I just needed to go pulling it back evenly till I got a pretty good red. And that's where I want to lock it down, meaning in this case, screw it so it doesn't move back and forth anymore, forward or backward. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm just tightening the screw on this. Okay, gotta be delicate because you don't want to over tighten, because then you can potentially break that glass. I mean, it'd be pretty tough, but just be aware of it. Okay, so now you got this blues in here. All I'm doing is lifting the yoke up so that it's avoiding that. And I got a little bit of green down here. All right, that's fairly uniformly red. And one thing I noticed here, so my yoke is tilted, right? See how my picture is like this? So I need to slightly turn this. And all I'm doing is rotating the yoke. I should have been a little bit more thoughtful on that when I tightened it down. So now I gotta go back to my red. Make sure I maintain my purity. I'm gonna loosen the yoke. And just tilt it. So now I gotta pay attention to, are they about even on the distances on the tilt? So it looks pretty good right there. Again, I'm tightening it down now. I have no wedges in place right now. It's an important thing to note. Okay, my red is red. My blue is green is green. My blue is blue. My white is white. Okay, and then I've got these falling blocks, but this is the place we're going to spend the most amount of time. Now, a lot of people will see these. So we get some issues with red up here. Get some issues with blue down here. Hopefully that can be seen. Let me see if I can zoom in a bit here. All right, so you can see these red issues up here, right? Now everybody would just immediately think, a lot of people would think, oh, that's your rings. Well, remember, we don't have any rings on this. I'm gonna show you why that doesn't matter. Now the rings are really intended to handle what we call static convergence. Static convergence is how well the colors overlap or line up in the center of the screens. This is called static convergence, this area in the middle. And that's really what the rings are intended to help for. Dynamic convergence is the lining up of the colors on the outer edges of the screen. So the rings, remember these guys here, these are really meant for helping you align the middle of the picture. They do not help on the outer parts of the picture. The two ways that you can line up dynamic convergence are primarily with the yoke. That's the first thing you should do. And then secondly with convergence strips. But that's really meant to be like the very last thing that you would do. All right, so let me zoom back here. So, okay, so you hopefully can see the convergence problem in this upper left-hand corner. Now, again, remember, I have no rings on there. I have no convergence strips. All I'm doing is messing with the yoke. And all I'm doing is right now pulling it up slightly and then tilting right and left. And in doing so, you can see I've very much altered. I'm gonna let it drop again. That's me dropping the yoke. This is me picking it up. Just picking it up and dropping it down, you can see how much better the convergence has gotten just by doing that. Now, when you've got issues on, the only way, let me say this, the only way that convergence strips are really gonna be helpful is dialing in your corners. If you've got convergence issues on the lines here, or the outer parts here, these vertical lines or these horizontal lines, convergence strips are not gonna help you. You have to dial in your yoke. So just lifting that up a little has made a big difference. I don't know if you can see all this red has gotten more aligned here. Even down here, these blues are starting to get a little bit more aligned. I lost my red again. Finicky connection. Just picking that up, you can see how much better that got. Now again, remember, I've got no rings on right now. This is just the yoke. So once I get it to a place that I kind of like it pretty good, now I'm looking at all parts of the screen here, looking for uniformity. And it's pretty good. Remember, you can tilt right, I'm tilting now this way and that way, that's that. And going up and down, that's up and down. But either way, you're looking for the best representation of where these colors all line up in as many spots as possible to get your picture as well out. Now that's pretty good to me. So now I'm going to take my yolk wedge and gently place it right where that yolk is to have it stay there. That's the whole point of these wedges. So I don't have another camera to show you, but all I'm doing is taking this wedge here. I'll show you here. This is up against the back of the tube. It wants to naturally fall, so I'm just putting this wedge in to keep it from falling. That's the purpose of this. So this is just me pulling up the yolk. I like that spot. I shove the wedge in. And if you get it to the place where you're pretty confident in its position, right there, you put the wedge in, and then you tape it down with some tape. There's my spot. Put this right there. And I got some tape here. Notice I'm working with two hands in the back. A lot of people, that freaks them out. Again, if you've taken the time to make sure the back of tube is grounded, that the electric area, the places I pointed out are not exposed, you'll be fine. All right, so that's pretty good. Again, I have no rings on right now. And let me back up here a second. Hopefully you can see a bit. It's a pretty uniform grid. This was 0 rings. Now, if I did have problems with the convergence here in the center of the screen, they absolutely would want the rings on there. And I'm not arguing here for not having rings. I'm just showing you how important the yoke is in getting your convergence down. And this yoke, and each yoke's a little different. Some are gonna have better uniformity in how they are able to align the guns. Some not as much. So that's something you're gonna have to evaluate. But the rings are really there to make sure that you can get this dialed in. This other stuff is not. Now these are convergence strips. Just an example of one. You can buy them in lots of places. These ones are nice. They have a good one should have a little adhesive on the back. So if I wanted to try to affect this picture in this upper right hand corner a little bit more, what I would do is take my convergence strip and shove it into the same corner. So you can, what's happening is this is spreading out the picture. So if I've got issues in the corner here, then I should be coming in at the corner here. Then I should be coming in at the corner here. If I've got issues down here, I want to come down here, so on and so forth. So these convergence strips can help by just shoving it under the yoke, right, until you get some of the movement you're looking for. And sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's less helpful. Now, one side of your screen, like this left-hand side, you can affect. Notice how I'm pushing. I don't know if you saw that real quick. Let's see if I'm down here. Let's see. I've got some blue challenges down there. Hopefully you can see that. Now, if I take this convergence strip and I start messing around down here, you see how that's moving things. Notice how I've moved the blue gun pretty substantially. Because on this side of the screen, this left-hand side of the screen, you can move the blue with these magnetic strips, but you're not going to move the red. So when you're doing the yoke alignment, you want to make sure that your red is lined up well, because the only thing that your strips are going to affect is your movement on blue. So you can, when you're putting these in, you can do everything from move them in and out, but you can also slide them around and then rotate slightly the angle of this magnetism to see how much it affects what you're aiming for here. So this is me just going straight in and then this is sliding it up and down, so up and down this way. You can see how that's affecting this blue here. And you can also rotate. Rotate can have some of the effects you're looking for. It depends on what you're going for. So this to me is pretty good right there. Let's see. Something like that. I would probably tape that in place. And then up here at the top. All right, camera turned off on me, but here you can see it's pretty well dialed in, right? I mean, I've got pretty good, and really good, I guess. Everybody's subjective, but very good convergence here. This corner needs a little work because, again, that was where I was messing with that last strip, but I didn't tie it down. But you can see the rest of it, hopefully, is quite good. And again, just as a reminder, this has no rings on it. This is just a yoke. I got one wedge and one that I haven't taped down, just messing around the convergence strip here. And that's it. So, you know, this is a pretty well dialed monitor. Now, if you did have problems, and I suppose I should do a whole thing on that. If you did have problems with getting uniformity in the center here, that's where your rings come in. All right, I realize that people are probably going to want to have more information on the convergence rings, and so I figured I would go ahead and do some discussion on that. First off, I just want to say that the thing that I follow the most here on all this stuff is the K7000 manual. So this gives you all kinds of great information on the positioning distance of where to place the rings, how to make adjustments. It's fantastic. So if you're wanting to know more about how to dial in monitors, this is a great resource to reference. So the first thing is about where you position the rings in the back of the tube. You'll notice here that it says for a 22.5 millimeter neck that you go between, you put the purity ring pair, which again is this pair here, the one that's closest to the neck, these sets, closest to the back of the tube. Those are your purity rings. And the physical distance in which you place it on the neck, how far up or how far forward, depends on if you're on a skinny neck tube with multiple grids, or if you're on a fat neck tube with 4 grids. So you can see here, we have a fat neck tube, 29 millimeter. So we are placing it between grids 3 and 4. So if you look at this picture here, you can see there's that gap between these. It might be a little hard to see in here, but there's these physical rectangular looking objects in here, and there's a gaps in between them, and so I've just shoved it to where these purity rings are sitting over the top of that gap, just like it shows in this image here. Okay. Now the first thing it says to do when you're adjusting purity. Now remember from my last part, purity is really dialed in with the yoke. However, these purity rings will help make sure that your monitor is not going to be screwed up depending on the physical orientation. One of the things you'll notice in the manual is it says to work on a monitor when it's facing east and west. And if I physically rotate this monitor as it currently stands, because I've purposely made the purity rings the wrong orientation. If I physically move this monitor, it changes the how much of the purity is, how good the purity is. And we don't want that. We want it to be that, so even if you move the monitor from east to west and north to south, that it wouldn't be affected by that. So to do that, You'll notice it says here to make sure that the magnetic rings are in their correct starting position. And it says that certain rings you want to adjust. Where does it say it here? Right here. On the rings assembly type, you need to make sure that the zero correct position is with the long tab of one ring aligned with the long tab of the other, or it could be the opposite. So on other ring assemblies of this type, the zero correction position is long tab aligned with long tab. On some, it is with the long tab aligned with the short tab. Well, what does that mean? So if we rotate this monitor here, you'll see, if I zoom in here, you see these tabs have some length to them. Now right now there's these two pairs. I'm splitting them apart. Right now the long is aligned with the long. And what happens, and that's purposely incorrect, and I'm going to show you here. When I rotate these together as a pair, so I spin it around like this, it's going to affect the purity. So as I'm spinning, zoom out here. As I'm spinning these rings, you'll notice how the purity gets better or worse depending upon where I'm rotating. So this is red, and you notice it's like almost blue as I'm rotating these. So these are incorrect. So what I want to do is spin these around till we've now got a long tab. See that? A long tab with a short tab. So now I'm going to pinch these together till they're aligned. And now I've got short and long. And now I've got nice red. And if I spin these around, so I'm going to be spinning these around, my red doesn't change. See, I'm spinning these and it's, look, let me zoom out. I'm spinning these rings around and nothing is changing as far as purity. So that's how I know that these tabs are supposed to be aligned together. So again, the long tab with the short tab. So you see that one's longer than the other and they're aligned. Okay, so that's what it tells us to do. And you want to have your purity it'll tell you here to have the rings starting in the 3 and 9 o'clock position. Now, as it states right here, you're going to want to work on a monitor ultimately in its final location. However, you should be trying to work with it facing west and east. So you can see that. So for me, that's shifting this slightly. Get this back here. For me, that's this way. Okay. So, I'm going to, so you can see we got a nice red there. Now we're gonna go to, and so I lock it down. So that what you do is you screw it down just to make sure that it's not moving, and you wanna make sure that these rings can spin freely and easily. So now I've got them in the correct position at the 9 and 3 o'clock position. And now I start messing with the other stuff. So to do this, I need to move to a grid pattern. So you can see right away how screwed up all my pattern got with putting the rings on. You may recall from the last video that these were looking pretty good with our yoke, but now it's way off with our rings. That might seem intimidating at first, so why would I change it? Well, because having the rings on there helps with that purity. So when I shift the monitor east and west with those rings on there, it's helps to prevent the degaussed looking imperfections of the colors in various areas. And also it just helps me to be able to get even a little bit better on the convergence. So you can see it's pretty poor right now. I'm actually going to shift the monitor back to where I shouldn't be, just because it's where my camera mount is, so you can see everything. And all right, shift this. So I'm just physically moving the monitor so you can see things better. Okay, so obviously our red and our colors are all screwed up. Now the first thing that I can see is that it looks like our horizontal lines are actually pretty decent. The white on white is pretty good, but the vertical lines are obviously way off. You can see that the red is shifted pretty substantially from green and blue. I'll be using these rings to kind of demonstrate what I'm doing back there. So again, these are the purity rings in the front here. Again, you're wanting to align these tabs either together or apart, depending upon what gives you the correct purity that stays, even if I spin this around. Okay, now I'm going to be working on converging green on blue. And green on blue is these middle set of rings. And when I pull them together, like this, or pull them apart, opposite of that. Kind of hard to show here, but when I pull them apart, that's going to affect how the, I looked this up because I'd forgotten, how the red and blue converge this way. If I want to affect how they, so in other words, how well this red and blue shifts this on the vertical lines. If I want to affect how well they line up on the horizontal lines, then that's where once I get them here, then I spin them together as a pair. So that's what I'm gonna be doing here in the background. Okay, so right now I'm taking the, as I just said, the middle two tabs, and I'm gonna be pulling them apart and pushing them together. So here's pushing them together. And then, let's see. Right now, I'm not worried about the fact that they're not hitting the white. I'm just trying to get them to align with each other. So that looks like this purple color. That's when red and blue hit each other correctly. They look like purple. So, trying to get that pretty good. Now I'm spinning them together to get some of the horizontal. All right, so you can see these horizontal lines are pretty good. Now I'm just trying to get these vertical lines here. And it's pretty good. About like that. Now this still looks way off, right? Because the green is now not on. But I've got my purple, which is the red and blue together, pretty uniform. I'm gonna have to probably do some more yoke tilts, etc. But now I need to get the green onto the purple, the red and blue together. And that is this last set of rings. So here again is purity, here is red and blue, and here is green on red and blue. So the first thing you dial in is the red and blue, and now I'm going to be doing the green, which is the ones in the back here. And so first thing I'm going to work on is how well these, so I'm pinching and pulling right now, pinching and pulling these guys here. apart or together. So in this example, again, this way towards each other, away from each other, to affect how well they converge this way, and then rotating them as a pair to affect how well they converge this way on the horizontal. So, but for now, I'm just focusing on these two together, and there we go. Pretty good. And I got it to where I pretty well like it, with some exception. Now that looks pretty good. I can go back to my red and green and see if I want to make any adjustments there. And again, I'm mostly focusing right here in the center of the monitor. How well does this look here? And that's pretty good. It's pretty good. So this is now pretty much where I had it with just the yoke from the previous video, previous clip, I guess I should say. And again, just focused on this area. And once I feel pretty good about that, I'll stop. So this is now with having done purity in the first part, just to get it to be uniform. Then it was the middle tabs for red on blue. In or out, again, affects this direction. Spinning them together as a pair, like this. That affects how well they converge on each other this way. And once you get the red and blue down, then you move on to green. Now I've still got some issue with those corners, a little bit on top. This is where you go back to yoke tilt, right? If yoke tilt or convergence strips. So for example, I've got a little bit of blue here up at the top. Hopefully you can see that there. That's not gonna go away with convergence strips, okay? See here. Yeah, so you can see that little blue at the top. That's not gonna go with convergence strips. I'm only gonna get that with my yoke tilt. So that would be just a little bit of probably pulling the yoke up or down. And then this stuff here in the back, or in this upper left-hand corner, the red, again, yoke tilt or convergence strips. That's the only way I'm gonna get that dialed in. So hopefully that helps, so you can see how the rings affect things. And just take this off so you can see this here. So you can see things are well dialed in. I know this stuff seems really intimidating, but once you understand it, it's not so bad. And again, the K7000 manual does a really good job of explaining all of this, how to make these adjustments. Sorry, go back and make this a little bigger so you can see stuff. But here it talks about, you know, how moving those rings affects, as I mentioned before, if you spin them, pull them apart and put them together, you get red on blue. If you spin them as a pair, you get the red on blue in the up and down direction. And then you then focus on putting green on red and blue. So now that I've got this rings to where I like it, and I probably should have mentioned when, I'm not sure if I did, when you get it to this right distance here physically that you want, you need to screw this down. Otherwise, as you're making movements, you could actually spin the whole assembly when you're trying to move these tabs, which just, then you're kind of chasing your tail because you think you're making adjustments with the rings, but because you're spinning the whole assembly, you're getting different results. So make sure to screw this down when you get it to the right physical distance on the neck this way. But there again, now we've got that same nice uniform pattern. And any adjustments I want to make from here, like this little blue line not being so great, that's my yoke tilt. And then I've got some, this camera, some red on white. You can kind of see it now then, red on white. That would need some adjustments. I'm gonna do that with some strips. And then same thing down here, when I can get this to sync right on color. You can see some blue here. That's all what I'll do with, again, convergence strips. But the rest of it is pretty good. I've got a little bit of red bleed. The green needs to be coming up a little bit better in here, but again, that's some yoke tilt. If I should say, I didn't say this before, but if you're having uniform, I know I've kept saying convergence rings are good for the center, but if you're having a uniform issue of like blue being off or red being off across the entire screen, that is rings. So let's say that I've got a blue shift here and it's happening across all of these squares. Yeah, by moving the rings, you're gonna get it to look good on the outside, but really it's just here. I mean, if you make it look correctly overlapping in the center, then it should be the same on all the sides. So again, dial in the middle with the rings. So hopefully this helps. If you have any other questions, let me know. Okay, I realized I forgot one thing, which was talking about dialing in the monitors for color. So, you know, how do you make sure that you've got a good looking picture? Now, Arcade Buffet did a nice thing on this, so I'm gonna just steal from him and explain. But we're gonna go to this guy, so gradient. It's not as good as the gradient as some other. This pattern generator is not bad. But you've got the colors, you get the controls on the back of the neck board and the flyback, and ultimately the chassis. So here on any neck board, on any CRT chassis, you've got the abilities to dial in colors, red, green, and blue. You've got your focus, and you've got your brightness here. And we're just gonna work on showing how each of these affects things. And on this chassis, we also got some additional controls, black revel and contrast. So I'll just kind of explain. I'm gonna, again, steal from him and show you how to dial that in. So on the back, I'm gonna be focusing on each color has what's called red drive. Drive and cutoff. So first I'm gonna just focus on, actually first thing I'm gonna do is focus on the brightness spot on the back of the flyback that we looked at. So what we're looking for here, and actually for this one I like to use, yeah, you can use this one. If we drive up the brightness on the back of the flyback too much, you'll notice that this black now is no longer black. So I want to pull it up, and then here you got retrace lines if you go too far. I want to pull it down until it becomes black. And actually, ideally, I like doing this in a dark room. Let's see if we can do that. Hopefully you can still, it's looking washed out here. It's not actually. There we go. Okay, so I like doing this in a dark room so I can really tell where the cutoff is. So as I've dialed up this brightness, it comes too high. Now it's no longer black, right? So I'm gonna go back until I see the absence of color. So black. Okay, good on that. That's just adjusting the brightness. Focus, of course, is the knob above it, and we can talk about that one. All I'm looking there for is how, once I get it really sharp, it's harder to do on this. It's easier to do when there's words on the screen, things like that. So I'll just do that real quick. So I'm gonna come to this part of the pattern generator and turn it on and off. So you got the words here. So I'm gonna see how So just want to dial it till it's sharp, right? That looks pretty sharp to me. Okay, I'm going to go back to our colors here. Okay, so we've got our brightness dialed in. Might be just a hair too much still. That's right there. Okay, next I'll be doing our colors, so we'll start with the red, and I'm going to do my drive. Now it's on the back of the neck board that I showed you. Now here I'm going to go to this guy here. So actually, let's go with this. So if my red drive is too high, I start to get this black from not being black. So here's me turning it way down. You can see how this is really starting to disappear the red. As I'm turning it up, I want to get to the point of where if I'm starting to see it in the black area, then I want to pull it away. Same thing with the cutoff. Now I go to the cutoff, I go too high. You can start to see this red here in the black area. Pull it down to where it's now black. All right, just want to get the black back. So I want to push it as high as we can and before it starts bleeding into the black areas where it shouldn't be, and then we pull it off. So I'm going to do the same thing with the green. Pull it all the way up. You can see the green here in this black area, hopefully. Let's see, I'll zoom in a little bit more. Okay. So if I put the green up too high, which I just did, you can kind of see it in there, and I'm going to pull it back till it's back to black. And do that with each of the greens. So put the drive all the way up too high, and then pull it back down. Pull the cutoff till it's up too high, and then pull it back down. Then I do the same thing for blue. I take the drive, push it beyond where it should be, and then pull it back down. Same thing with the cutoff, and then pull it back down. Again, till I got my blacks. And that's where you get contrast. And then it's the last part is you've got, at least on a K7000 chassis, depends on the chassis, you've got black level and contrast. Contrast, I want to push it up as high as I can until it starts to smear. You see where that smearing started? Might be easier to see. Here's a good place. So you see, if I get too high, you see it distorts the picture, even makes it look out of focus. So I want to go as high as I can before the smearing starts, and then bring it back. And then I've got brightness, which I can turn up, but you can see you want to maintain your black levels, right? So that's it. And you got your monitor dialed in. You can be as finicky or what have you as you want. Let me just show you that smearing again close up. So if I do the contrast too high, you can see where it distorts the picture. All right, and then if I bring it back down, now I've got a uniform. Lose that smearing. That's the brightness messing with. All right, hopefully that all helps.